As fans of any artistic medium, the one thing we always have is hope. Hope that no matter what, we're gonna get the thing we want, whether it's the next album, movie, game, and so on. Sometimes, though, things fall out of order. As fans, we've seen the impossible, the band that broke up finally getting back together. For films, we've also seen likewise, movies we thought would never get made, finally getting the limelight. There's a special place referred to it as development hell. It's where movies, music, and games go to die, or rather, stuck in purgatory because they're never being made. And it's because script change, the properties change owners don't get along with the scriptwriters, actors leave, directors leave, and so on. The process of making any artistic endeavor, as we've said before, has so many moving gears, it's a miracle anything gets made. So for those that don't, we have the purgatory, where every so often a piece of media is able to hatch a daring escape. A prime example of this is Freddy vs. Jason, which took over 10 years to make, even though it was hinted at in the final Friday the 13th. Yeah, we saw this scene at the end with Freddy's claws grabbing Jason's mask, and we were so excited. None of us knew that it would take 10 years before we finally got to see it. Another more extreme example, and arguably the most famous of showing why fans still have hope, is The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Seriously, the making of this film is more interesting than the film itself. It took 30 years to get made. It went through natural disasters, floods, actors and directors dying, lawsuits, damage being done to World Heritage sites. I'm making none of this up, by the way. As I've said, the path towards the film is more interesting than the final product, and I highly recommend you watch documentaries Lost in La Mancha and He Dreams of Giants. Yeah, the movie took so long they made not one, but two documentaries on why it was taking so darn long. So as fans, that's why we always hold up hope that a property or license can one day be resurrected. Going back to games, who wasn't shocked when Sony was like, yo, can you lend us some money so we can finish Shenmue 3? Or when Duke Nukem Forever, the game that was a running joke and that it would take literally forever, was finally made. The same with Diablo 3, it took 10 years. You could finish most of your schooling before it was finished. So we've seen it happen. So even with no evidence, we always hold out hope. Because hope might be all we have. Another game that we waited years for is sadly Megaman Legends 3. Today I'll go over its sort of development cycle and why it was kinda cancelled but was also never being made, really. It's kinda confusing, don't worry, I'll explain. To start off with, Keiji Inafune, the producer of the games, had always wanted to do Legends 3. But money was always an issue. Game development is an expensive endeavor. During an interview with OneUp.com a full 7 years after the release of Legends 2, when asked about the future of Mega Man in general, he stated, "I'm waiting for a rich person to appear and throw money at me. I'm not even saying it has to be Capcom money. It could be EA actually. I should say a company we have ties with, so maybe Rockstar." Yeah, I also had no idea until researching this video that Capcom at the time was publishing a lot of Rockstar games in Japan. It's pretty ironic, Legends was the proto sandbox game, and that seems to be Rockstar's bread and butter. In another world, maybe we did get Legends 3 thanks to Rockstar, and in return, Walnut is driving down the streets of Los Santos, Grove Street for life. Jokes aside, when he was asked his wish a la he didn't have to worry about money, no restraint, he responded it would be Legends 3, saying, "If I was able to make a sequel without having to worry about money in any shape or form, I think it would probably be Mega Man Legends 3. That's not just me, a lot of the original team members would love to make a sequel. They talk about it, I talk about it sometime, I know they love the series and so do I. If I were to say right now, I have a tiny dream that I wish I could realize, but I don't know if it's possible. It would be to do a sequel in the Legends series. The framework that we use for our next-gen titles, creating it was not easy, it took talented individuals. One was the main programmer on Mega Man Legend. He said while creating it, he was envisioning how Lost Planet would fit in it, and how Dead Rising would fit, and on top of that, now anytime you want to make a Mega Man Legends game with this framework, it's ready. All you need to do is go and we can slap Mega Man in there. Which is always great to hear, that the people making the series are passionate and want to continue. You want to keep playing these games, they want to keep making them. In 2007, while a lot of the side series of Mega Man games had continued to great success, like Zero and Battle Network for the GBA, for both the mainline and X games, there wasn't much besides remakes and anniversary collections. We did around a year later see my boy Walnut in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom for the Wii, By the way, this is a really good fighting game. If you can find it for cheap, go for it. I highly recommend it. It's tons of fun with friends. So yeah, to hear the main producer be like, no, I want Legends 3, knowing how expensive it was clear that artistically there was nothing stopping the game. So not only were they willing, but they had the basic idea in mind using the MT frameworks, which powered Dead Rising, Monster Hunter, basically almost every Capcom game from the last 10 years. And while making that game engine, the people behind it were thinking, oh yeah, I can use this for the game I really want to make. So the passion was there, and in 3 years we would get great news. Or so we thought. The day was September 29th, 2010. During a Nintendo press conference, Nintendo confirmed that Legends 3 was coming towards their new system, the 3DS, with Inafune serving as executive producer, with the directing role now being headed by Mazukazu Iguchi, whose name I hope I did not mess up. He was a scenario writer for the Battle Network series and even directed one of the Star Force games, so it had some actual talent behind it. The release said more details would be revealed come New York Comic Con. I was able to find the shaky ham-can footage of the event. In it, Inafune reveals plans for the future of Mega Man, including this, and also the soon-to-be-cancelled Mega Man universe. We'll also get to that one too, sadly. But for now, let's pretend it's still the halcyon days of 2010, and we're all excited for Mega Man's future. To start, Inafune made no bones about it. These games were critically acclaimed, but didn't sell well at all. But he thanked the fans anyway, saying it's because of the fans and their passion that they're getting what they want and what he wants. Because again, Legends was a real passion project for him. In thanks, he wants the fans' input, saying the Capcom Unity blogs would be holding events where fans can submit ideas for things like bosses, apply to be possible voice actors, or nominate voice actors, even apply to be a liaison between Capcom of America, Japan, and the Capcom Unity blog. He even revealed that fans could submit rocket designs ideas for the rocket that would rescue Mega Man Volants, along with voting for the design of the new heroine and more plans to come. Now, this is part and parcel with a lot of Kickstarters. This was a big name company saying we want fans to decide. It was something new, but it also kept in tone with Mega Man. Ever since Mega Man 2, Capcom had viewer submission contests where kids can draw boss enemies with the chance of it appearing in the games. I myself submitted a few when I was younger. I was never a good artist, so I made sure to write on bold marker the characters' names. I had Mantis Man and Shark Man, which was the two I could remember. I clearly didn't win. Though, funny enough, in X6 there is a shark boss called Metal Shark Player. I'm not saying they took my idea. After all, when you're a kid, sharks are the coolest thing ever, so they probably got a few of them. But a small part of my mind is like, yeah, they took my idea. Even though I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99.9% sure they didn't. There was also some great prizes, the best being for Mega Man 4, a special gold cart with only 8 made that sells for $6,000 today. If you have one of those, contact me. I don't want to buy it. I would use that money to improve the production value around here. I just want to see if it's real is all. Prizes like that weren't being given out this time around, instead just your input finishing the game. Inafune ended it with a small peek of the new main character, Barrett, and one of the towns in the game saying, I only want to show you the good stuff. There's more things, but I want you to see what I think works great. While hopes were high, it's kinda crazy to think in less than a month, Inafune would leave Capcom and have the fate of Legends on a precipice. The rift was always there between Capcom and Inafune. During that year's Tokyo Game Show, he had said that Capcom is barely keeping up, and that Japan in general is 5 years behind the West. And the year before, he proclaimed Japan is dead. Darn, those are some harsh words. And for now, I'd like to clear up some misconceptions about the man himself and his overall place in the industry. Nowadays, I feel like Inafune gets a lot of smack when it comes to his talks of how the Japanese game industry is dying, and it's easy to point at Mighty Number 9 and the current state of the industry and laugh. But you know what they say about hindsight. So let's fire up that TARDIS to land in the year of 2002. Japan at the time had 50% of the global market when it came to video games, and by 2010, it had shrunk to a mere 10%. There were many reasons for this shrinking. One, of course, was the global recession. But economics is hard and messy, and the recession kind of affected everyone. So along with the recession, other reasons for the shrinkage was overly long development times and slow release dates, a lack of third-party game engines, and for being too insular to appeal to a global market. Though one could say the same thing about the West, since many Western games don't translate well in Japan. He also wasn't the only one echoing the sentiment about Japan and its relevance in the industry. Yoichi Wada, the former president of Square Enix, went on to say that Japanese developers are in a closed environment, and that Japanese developers are almost xenophobic when it comes to working with their Western counterparts. He also shared Inafune's notion on how, in the West, developers had grown by leaps and bounds, being quoted as saying, Western game developers used to be bad, but now they have people who used to work in Hollywood and the computer industry, which has led to strong, stable growth. Itagaki, creator of the Dead or Alive series, echoed similar claims. Basically, I'm tired of this meme of people who know nothing about the video game industry, mocking Inafune as if he was this crazed madman who was a Westaboo. He was someone who took a bet on what he thinks the industry should go for. It may not have worked completely in his favor, but he deserves credit for sticking his neck out. And he didn't have an absolute love for the West, since he felt that Japanese developers were more imaginative, and he didn't think the Western dominance would forever be a thing, saying, at least for now, Western games are more interesting and superior. In the previous example, European football is much better now. You can't beat Spain with guts alone, so what we have to do now is know Spanish football, French football, and British football. In that sense, I think it can't be helped to say Mr. Inafune is watching only European soccer programs. However, it is very important to admit that you are losing now and you can learn from the other person. However, the spirit of the Japanese game making does not disappear easily. The unity of the Japanese people is amazing if they get serious about it. I don't want to lose to America or Europe because I love Japan. It was clear Inafune always had a love for his home country and for producing games, but maybe he just didn't have a love for Capcom and its environment itself. It had to be that maybe he just wasn't a fan of Capcom, because think about it. It's crazy, a month after he has this whole press conference, the happiest day of his life, and he leaves. And a week after that press conference, he was even quoted as saying, I hate my job, I want to retire. Again, a few weeks after that statement, he had tendered his resignation. It seems like it was a mutual split that both parties wanted to leave, since when he resigned, no one even did a half-hearted call to say, oh no, please don't go. Besides his obvious dissatisfaction with Japanese gaming in general, it seemed he had issues with Capcom, making vague statements on how we try to implement changes in both development and budgets, but they never went anywhere. After leaving his job of 20 plus years, Inafune went on to make both Concept and Intercept, to mixed success, and honestly, that's a video for another time. So let's leave it off that the captain manning the ship has left. Even though they had lost one of their main guys and the person behind Legends, Capcom said they were still dedicated towards Mega Man Universe and Legends. Now, an idea has formed that Capcom canceled anything Mega Man related because they were so upset about Inafune leaving. I'll elaborate more on that false point later, but to sum it up quickly, no. They didn't because they continued on with the game for almost another year. If you wanted to cancel it right then and there because you were angry, you wouldn't waste money on another year. The Capcom Unity blog continued to have contests and fan collab, so by all accounts it seems like things were on track. It was then that they announced Mega Man Legends 3 prototype version, which is basically a fancy way to say demo. And yes, it wouldn't be a Legends game without even a demo having an extra title in Japan. Again, I love these so freaking much, so are you ready? So while researching this video, you already know that in Japan, Legends is called Dash. Well, apparently Dash is an acronym for, and this is all true, Dig Outers Adventure Stories in Halcyon Days. Man, imagine saying the full titles of these games. First one, Rockman Dash, Adventurous Spirit of Steel. Not too bad. Minus what Dash really means. Second one, Rockman Dash 2, Episode 2, The Great Inheritance. Bit of a mouthful. Now the name for the demo? Rockman Dash 3, The Prologue, showing you the game's underbelly. Or the full title, Rockman, Dig Outers Adventure Stories in Halcyon Days 3, The Prologue, showing you the game's underbelly. I just love that. There's nothing more I can add to this perfection. It's like the ultimate tongue twister. Devil's Castle has nothing on this. Now, for the sake of clarity, we're just going to call it Legends 3 demo because this is Murica, and I don't feel like half the script should be me just saying the game's title. A Legends 3 demo, we were told what it was. It would be released on the eShop for 200 or so yen, which amounts to give or take $2 here, with 10 missions involving the new character Barrett. But in those missions, you meet the old gang, Data, Roll, and it said it would serve as a prologue for the adventure, so fans could see their input and also hint at what the game had in store, like Reaverbots in the city. For those who didn't watch the last two vids, Reaverbots exist outside of town in the ruins from the ancient ones, never inside. Could this be a sign of the Master System opening up, the world going to chaos? Needless to say, the hype was at an all-time high. We were also told that maybe the future of the game will depend on this, if it didn't sell well. So with that plea, we were ready. We were excited. Oh, wait, no, the game was suddenly cancelled. Yeah, even though we were told, hey man, this might make or break the actual game, we never got that opportunity. On July 18th, 2011, the game was abruptly cancelled. You might recall that day when a bunch of grown men, women, and those in between wailed in anger. And the reason? Like Inafune's departure, we never really got a full one. People were confused to say the least, and we wanted answers. And with no answers to fill that void, other ideas with no actual substantiating data was used instead. Capcom wasn't exactly helping matters either. Capcom UK's Twitter account said that the fans were to blame. If only there was more fan support and interest, would the game be made? Sad face. Clearly, this got a lot of backlash since this whole thing was being made because a lot of people were fans and wanted to see Legends step up in a new generation. Capcom UK then apologized, saying they meant interactions with the dev room were what they meant by fan support. Though I don't really buy that either, because the dev room said, hey, it's fine to just sit back and relax. So maybe you're not artistically gifted. You can just watch the process, and at its height, the Japanese and English dev rooms had over 13,000 members and rising. Don't blame Capcom UK though. Mostly because social media accounts by companies are just interns who are towing the company line. So no hate on the person forced to type that. The anger was tantamount because we were told, hey man, if not enough people even buy this demo, this game might not be made. Oh wait, no, forget it, no demo to even see if people like this. To add to that miasma of confusion, it seemed the demo was for the most part finished. Games Radar spoke with Chris Hoffman of Nintendo Power, who was the only English journalist to play the game, and he confirmed that the game demo was done, minus a bug here and there, and that it was pretty action-packed for a $2 demo, getting a lot of money for your worth. Sadly, again, it was cancelled, and on his birthday too. Dang, tough break, Chris. So why would Capcom do this? Well, from researching this video, I found the answers, and it's not actually that complicated, but it took time to find out. And if you want something hot and ready, this is where we get to the dark side of the internet, aka wild speculation. You won't give us answers, but we're gonna make some up. The main theory that filled that ever-gaping void was that Capcom was just so angry that Inafune left that they decided to shoot themselves in the foot by canceling anything Mega Man related. And to be fair to those who held on to this for years, we did have a trio of games get cancelled, including Mega Man Universe, Legends 3, and a trilogy of games in the X universe called Maverick Hunter, where you play as X in a first-person perspective. Supposedly being made by Retro Studios, the same people who did Metroid Prime, it would span hundreds of years where the final game would be you as Zero fighting a now corrupted X. Also cancelled, sort of. And to top it all off, the next Mega Man to appear in a fighting game was Bad Box Art Mega Man, aka Fat Mega Man, which many people took to trolling. Cause yeah, a multi-million-dollar company is going to lose money in order to annoy some fans. Makes total sense to me. To knock these out of the park, we're covering Legends 3. Mega Man Universe seemed not even that many fans enjoyed it or really wanted it. The art style was divisive and seemed to turn many people off. Bad Box Art Mega Man is actually a fun nod towards the original American cover. And besides, just like Universe, many people didn't even like Street Fighter Cross Tekken to begin with. As for the first-person shooter by Retro was never going to do the game. All there was a proof of concept, a la a tech demo to be presented to Capcom to see if they wanted to pick it up. They declined, so it was never cancelled because it was never greenlit. Speaking of never greenlit, remember the start of the video where I said Legends 3 was kinda never greenlit? Yeah, it seems Inafune had a habit of asking for forgiveness rather than permission, starting works on projects like Dead Rising and Lost Planet, and only alerting higher-ups when too much time and development had passed. Hey, I love Dead Rising, and while I've never played Lost Planet, I've heard some pretty good things about it. Is it possible that without the captain of the ship, someone who's been there for 20 years, who knew how to navigate these waters, finesse the other higher-ups, that the game was on the chopping block? Totally. But Capcom was still putting out feelers when he left. They were even supposed to have events at Akibahara. For those who don't know, Akibahara is kind of like the nerd mecca, so doing events there isn't exactly cheap. Sadly, that was stopped due to the 2011 tsunami and earthquake, So it wasn't personal, but business. Megaman, who was liaison on the Unity block between fans and the developers, when Legends was cancelled, he said how game development is a multi-approval process that involves all sectors of the company, and really at any point, that plug can be pulled if it's felt like it's not worth it. So it came to Capcom feeling like they couldn't go and make back their money. Again, game development is costly. So much so in the interview where Inafune declared he left Capcom, he also said, "A big hit for PS3 is considered 500,000. That doesn't even cover development costs." Which, by now, it's well known that the PS3 was costly and hard to develop for. Along with that, publishing in games works different than any other medium, when it comes to royalty fees at least. See, in most mediums, you pay after the fact rather than before. Like let's say you go to the movies and you watch a DC or a Marvel film. After you purchase your ticket, then a portion of that ticket goes to either Disney or Warner Brothers, not before. In games, you have to pay royalty fees to publish before you even sell one copy. So let's say Capcom orders 1,000,000 units. Then there's the manufacturing cost, and the publishing cost of the 1,000,000 units, regardless if they don't sell that much. If you only sell half that, you still have to pay the publishing cost for the full 1,000,000. So it always comes down to money. Even if other studios came to the rescue, like CyberConnect 2, makers of Asura's Wrath, which I had not played but heard decent things about, said, "Yo, we'll develop the game," Capcom would still be paying them as a publisher. And short of any studio working for pennies on the dollars and having their developers basically eating trash, it just wasn't happening. This all comes down to cost assessment. The first two games didn't sell well. Again, the second game sold less than 400,000 worldwide, which I just found out, depending on the hardware, is literally nothing. So Capcom doesn't see a future for Legends 3. It's not a hatred of Mega Man, just cold, cruel business. Now the big question is, where do we go from here? Where do we go? We stay here and we hold on hope. It's all we can do. As I said, we can't go and give up hope. And the fans didn't. Instantly, a Mega Man group was started on Facebook called Get Me Off the Moon to show Capcom there's a large community of fans that's still pretty active to this day. Fan games were also made, including Tuttle's Legendary Adventures, set in the Legends universe, being made since 2012. Sadly, the last time they were active was in 2019, with a note from the developers saying how hard it is to make this while working a full-time job, and hopefully when things settle down, they'll be able to make more time. As we all know, 2020 was the last thing for being, bruh, chill. So who knows, hopefully in 2021, they'll be able to get more time and update it. There was also a fan-made game that would be a 3D reproduction of the original game using the Unity 3D engine. Sadly, they haven't been active since 2017, which is the fate of a lot of games. Ironically, never finished, sadly following the same fate of the game that inspired them. The fans are passionate. So passionate, this is a real video. A bunch of fans singing to the rhythm of "Do You Hear the People Sing?" but for Mega Man.
Do you hear the people sing, singing a song of angry men?
It is the music of the fans who won't buy Capcom games again.
Till you give us Legends 3, all of my cash will stay with me.
Capcom has failed its loyal.
Victor Hugo is looking down proudly, I'm sure. Along with that, they recreated a model of the rocket that would save Mega Man, and launched said bottle rocket. Returning to fan games in 2014, a 2D remake of the prototype version was released. I'll even drop a link for you guys so you can check it out. I don't have a gaming controller, but what I was able to do on my keyboard was pretty impressive to say the least. They also got some real star power behind it, with help from Legends character creator Hideki Ishikawa and composer Makoto Tomozawa. A few years later, a documentary from the Facebook group was made because the fans are relentless. They want to prove to Capcom that this game series is worth saving. The people who worked on it are passionate. Inafune has stated that he supports the fans, showing their support, and even though he doesn't work for Capcom, would love to develop Legends 3 for them. And the composer, who also no longer works for Capcom, but is on pretty good terms with them, tweeted, "Would the fans support kickstarting the development? So is that the future of Legends 3? Maybe." Earlier I talked about Shenmue 3 being kickstarted. That was also a game that took years to make. So Dig Outers, let's keep it up, let's raise noise, continue to show Mega Man is relevant. That way Capcom will invest time and give us the continuation we've spent 20 years thinking about. Hopefully soon we'll get them off the moon, and hopefully soon we'll have more Dig Outers to share this adventure with. Hey there, guys, gals, and all those in between. This is the End Slate. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and since this is my first End Slate, since my first video, I hope you noticed the improvements that I've been making. As I said, I promise to improve with each new video, and I hope you've seen that I've been making good on that promise. With Legends done, next video will be about a favorite game of mine. It's going to be an RPG, followed by something horror related, because the spoopy season is upon us. Probably Silent Hill, for being honest. Anyway, I have a Twitter if you want to follow. I mostly post memes, stuff like that. And a Patreon. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. You know, stuff that costs you literally nothing. Anyway, have a great day, night, whichever. And I'll see you next time.